She has traveled to 71 countries and speaks an incredible 9 languages. She's a national leader in the defense and intelligence community, and she has spent her entire life protecting the country that welcomed her grandparents with open arms. This is a special episode. Today, I am interviewing the one and only Krystle Kaul, who is a congressional candidate. Krystle, welcome to the show today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's such an interesting thing to interview someone with such a rich background in this, right? So, not a lot of people get this interaction with political candidates, especially, congressional candidates, to really know, who the person is behind the campaign. And I read a couple things off your website, my mind is blown. So, I'm so, grateful for the opportunity to connect with you today.
I am honored that you have me on your show, and I've been following you. I'm just excited to, be able to speak about my life, what I'm running for, what I want to do, and just get my message out.
Yep, it takes a village, right? That's for sure. Now, how did you get I'm just curious about this background. How does one get into this line of work where you're in politics and national security, and what was that journey like for you, Krystle?
Yeah, I think it was a compilation of a few things. Definitely as a child, right? And I think that your most formative years are always like 0 to 5. And so as a 5-year-old, I watched, I had family that had to flee Kashmir. So that's where my father's from. They lost their home, they lost their belongings, and so they left. And that really impacted me in a very deep way to really understand, okay, obviously you're 5, you're trying to comprehend everything, but I watched my grandparents and extended family, go through all of this. And I think that was really the inception of wanting to understand the roots of extremism and the roots of counterterrorism. At an early age, when I'm sure those terms didn't really mean much to me, but it was difficult for me to comprehend from an emotional standpoint what was happening. And I think that laid the foundation for the rest of my life. Because my father shared, hey, your grandparents are now refugees, and where they're going through this. And in Kashmir, it's a conflict zone even to this day. And so push forward, 9/11 happened. I'm from New York. That further cemented this need to really understand, okay, how does fundamentalism come about? How does one, basically plan an attack on innocent civilians? And that, obviously hits really close to home. I was from Long Island. And I left for DC. I studied at American University. I did international relations. I did a minor in women in politics, especially at a time when that was not really a field. It was still very new. I got to help co-author a book on breaking the glass ceiling for women. Keep in mind, back in 2004, there were maybe 14% women in Congress. And so and we are almost 52% of the population. So I interviewed members of Congress like Congresswoman Loretta Sanchez, Congressman Joe Wilson, back when they were we're talking more than 20 years ago. I was part of a Washington leadership program. This was through an organization called the Indian American Center for Political Awareness. So we didn't have any Indian Americans in Congress at that time. And that helped. They picked 15 South Asian Americans from the US to intern. I got to intern for Congressman Marty Meehan, who's a great Dem from Massachusetts. And I was publishing articles about needing minorities into Congress, needing women in Congress, right? I was really passionate about this. And also alongside was still very committed to this notion of like counterterrorism, right? How do we fight it? Counterinsurgency. So I always specialized in peace and conflict resolution in as a sub area of studies. And then I, worked at a lot of think tanks. Carnegie Endowment for International Peace, Center for Strategic International Studies, Woodrow Wilson Center, Rand Corporation later. I did my master's at Johns Hopkins, SAIS, in international relations. I had a dual focus on South Asia, Middle East. And then I went to do my PhD work at Brown University. And I did doctoral fieldwork in Kashmir and also in Israel, Palestine. I'm the only congressional candidate in this race that has actually lived in Israel, Palestine, that understands what's going on over there, not just from articles or from newspapers, but actually having lived there is very different. And also conducting interviews. I conducted interviews with government officials, with several stakeholders. And then my whole career has been in the national security defense arena. I identify as a national security Democrat. So that basically means there's 9 members of Congress that have come from a national security background. For example, Abigail Spanberger, she is former CIA. She's now running for governor. She's wildly popular. That's a very Virginia story. And I'm, similar, like there's people ask, like, what's your path? So there's many paths to Congress. There are people in Congress who are doctors, some are teachers, some are businessmen and women, some come from national security, right? So there's different forms of service that you can take. And I got to work under Secretary Austin, who was then General Austin at U.S. Central Command. I ran the ISIS crisis counterterrorism cell night shift on running Iraq political military affairs. I did emerging trends technology at the CIA, and then I came in as one of the youngest directors in the highest civilian rank. I was a GS-15 at the Department of Defense. Very rare to come in. 1, because of my age, I was 32. 2, because I'm a woman, and 3, a woman of color. So those are 3 things that were unusual. But I got to work closely with Secretary Mattis, and I got to work with a lot of the top defense contractors like Deloitte, GDIT, Leidos. And then I helped to really form the Joint Artificial Intelligence Center when it was still pretty nascent. I worked on a lot of cybersecurity issues, smart cities, IoT, AIML, and then I run a defense tech firm. So I have had large clients like Intel Corporation, McKinsey, Bank of New York Mellon, Bain, but I really shifted my model to help small businesses because I think that in the U.S. defense industrial base, small businesses definitely need more of a leg up. It can be very difficult to enter understanding the RFP process, understanding how you get contracts. There's obviously a lot of money to be made, but it's still a bit of a black hole if you don't understand it, if you don't have the right relationships. It's not as easy as just submitting an RFP and you'll be successful. And even with a lot of the set-asides, women-owned small business, disabled veteran, WASB, 8A, Hub Zone, et cetera, et cetera. I've seen struggling small businesses come to me and say, hey, I'm in the 4th year of 8A and I'm still really struggling. I'm in the red. So I decided to take on a lot of clients that are small businesses, which again, that's really speaks to VA-10, minority-run businesses, women-owned businesses, disabled veteran, to help them in the whole defense acquisition process. And I teach at MIT remotely through 2U. So I've got a strong defense tech background, and I think that, sorry, slightly under the weather here. My candidacy is really strong in Virginia District 10 for a few reasons. One, I'm like only top contender that actually lives in the district, which I think is important.
Really?
Yeah, that's one.
That's surprising.
Yeah, there are a few others, other top contenders who don't live in the district. Two, I I really am relatable from the sense of I've worked for the big defense prime contractors, right? So I get it. I have been a defense, director, right? I've been in the highest civilian rank, and I'm a small business owner, and that really drives the economy here in VA-10. It's one that's 44% minority. So there's definitely a big appetite for wanting someone to come in who's a person of color. And it's also really female friendly, which I think I'm really proud of. We've had only a woman in Congress here for more than 14 years. So I think there's an appetite for, a woman of color from defense who understands the instability of defense contracting and the struggle small business owners face, and has been also in the DoD, in a director level role with the policymakers. So I have a lot of mentors that are, former four-star generals, two secretaries of defense, and I'm really proud of the momentum I've built up in this race. Only candidate to be featured in the New York Times, and I recently got into Loud and Now, Blue Ridge Line. I've been covered by Blue Virginia, a number of different outlets, and so it's been really quite remarkable just to see the amount of people and groups that have come out to support. And I'm really proud of a group that they call themselves the Battle Axis for Call. This is a number of 55 plus, individuals who are, they're really active with like the retirement homes. They're active, with it's like elderly white senior citizen women and men who are actually doing an event for me this Saturday, 1:00 at the Ashburn Senior Citizen Center. They saw me at the candidate forum. They heard all the candidates speak, and they said that your message really resonated. And they've been writing letters to editors of all local press. So it's not just the minorities, it's not just the women, but I think it's larger groups, and it's the groups that really come out and vote in a primary. And I think that's important. It's people who are active grassroots activists and part of people who come to all the DEM meetings, things like that. So so I'm excited. I'm 2.5 weeks out to early vote, and the election is in 61 days. So
Wow.
cool.
Congratulations on all of your success. Sincerely, it's so good to see another woman win, right? And
Yeah.
just keep going. And I believe in elevating, elevate people that are really doing good in the world, trying something new and going after their dreams. So,
Yeah.
regardless of what our opinions are, we see that, you're going after this dream, and it's ultimately the dream your grandparents prayed for. You're
Yeah.
living their dream. Have
Yeah, that's
you
true.
ever thought about it like that?
Yeah, my grandparents really, they were really formative in my life. They immigrated here from India, and my grandfather was he really lived the American dream. He came with, with nothing but a dream, and he worked really hard, 7 days a week, and just built a great life for my family, and taught me he taught me all the tenets that I'm now using in my campaign of hard work, of follow up, of you're going to hear a whole bunch of no's and then you might hear a yes. And he was just he was a really hardworking immigrant, and he was really patriotic. He both my grandparents actually worked. Not a lot of people know this, but they actually worked at the U.S. Embassy in Kabul, Afghanistan. And when they came, like the Soviets invaded there, they with the U.S. Embassy, they came over to the U.S. and they immediately got naturalized, and then they brought their whole family over from India. So it's great. I think that that notion of service has obviously been in my family for a long time. And yeah, they were super patriotic, and they loved the opportunities you have here, and just if you work hard and you're, my grandpa he was a really honest broker, and my grandmother was very like community service oriented. She was someone who really would cook for the whole community, would be active with community event planning. I always say to this day, she would make a great politician. But if she had the opportunity to run, she really was people driven. She had all the tenets of being a great public servant. But of course, at that time, it's very difficult. Being a new immigrant here, politics is not something you would even think about. So I think I've been afforded a lot of opportunities because of their struggles. And now I'm able to pursue my dream.
That's amazing. But all I can think about, a lot of the audience here is really into personal development and confidence building. All I can think about when I hear all of this is it must take a lot of confidence to do what you're doing as well. I rarely hear anybody talk about it, but when I think about running for any type of position like that, I think of, do I have the mental fortitude? Because I can only imagine, right? How much confidence and self-belief it takes as well, to go after these big goals and dreams. What do you think about that, Chris? I mean, how does one develop the confidence to do something like this?
I think it's twofold. I think some people ask about public speaking, and I say, I'll give you the honest truth. When I was 14, I had a bit of a stammer. I was super nervous. I would actually shake if I had to give like a presentation in front of my English class of like 14 kids. I was really bad. Like I was exceptionally bad at public speaking, and I was so nervous. And I talked to my mom, and she said, you should go do speech and debate. And it's something I really had to train myself on. And I started off, my speech captain would train me on memorizing 10-minute long speeches, going and competing across schools in Long Island and private schools, and especially some of these kids and these private school boards were really good. They would come in like little politicians, in their suits and ties, and I was super bashful, and I worked at it, and I got better at it, and I built the confidence. I really do feel like a lot of this is training. Some people think it's all just natural, it's all innate, either you have the skill set or you don't. It's not. I don't think that's necessarily the case. I think it's something that with real practice, sitting in front of cameras over and over, sitting in the mirror, and doing it again and again, I started to get better, and I started improving as I would go out. And I remember, getting like honorable mention, and it was like being bottom of the heap to like finally moving up. But it didn't happen randomly. It wasn't that I was just this gifted, person. It really took a lot of time and training. And then I remember when I was at the Defense Threat Reduction Agency, I was emceeing. It was their 20-year anniversary.
Mm-hmm.
And I was emceeing, and I was announcing Secretary Mattis to come on stage. And I had a thought, and I said, my God, 14-year-old Krystle would, have freaked out. And it was being streamed. It was 5,000 people who were watching. And I did it calmly. I did it without any sense of nervousness. But I also realized that, Krystle, like this took 20 plus years of training to reach that point. This is not something that you just wake up overnight and, you're up there. Because, little Krystle would have probably been shaken up at the podium. So I do think that anyone can do it. I think you can just train yourself. You can do Toastmasters, there's ways, abilities to do it. And then secondly, in the sense of running for Congress, right? That's a different level of confidence. That's a different level of fortitude, mental fortitude. We're human. I have bad days too. I have days where I break down. You have days where you doubt yourself. Oh my God, what am I doing? It's really tough. Sometimes you pull out the cookies. Like some days I just have to go talk to my neighbor who's like, let's just have a cup of tea, call a friend. go to bed and just wake up and hope it's better. And then there are days you wake up and things just start to unfold naturally. And it's the same kind of thing, I think, as what I'm talking about in a shorter time frame. But
Mhm.
I'm now reaping the fruit of all of this hard work I've been putting in since last fall. And I had to build a team, and I built a volunteer base, and I built grassroots momentum, and I've been working at this, and I have a great team of supporters. I mean, it kind of takes a village, but I it starts with an idea. I had a belief I could do this. I worked at it and worked at it. I had a lot of naysayers who said, "There's no way." And the press will never cover you, and you're not going to make it, and this and that, and just and it's very different when you're interviewing members of Congress about the gender gap, and then when you're running for Congress as a woman, and
Yeah.
that's a woman of color, and you start to see the disparity firsthand, and you start to see the inequality. It's very real. So I'm really proud of the fact that in my district, people are more open-minded and people are really forward-thinking. But I still have come across people in this campaign outside who uh, who have said some things, that are not very nice and are hurtful, and no one realizes how much you're going through. The lack of sleep, you've got no routine. I mean, there's a lot and a campaign is very difficult. It's not like you have a structured 9 to 5, right? Here, it's just every day is different. You've got to roll with the punches. You can plan out as best you can, but you have to be really agile. And I do think that you've got to be thick-skinned, and you've got to have like you're saying, the mental fortitude to brush stuff off. There will be some mean comments out there. There will be people to say some things, but I think overwhelmingly, I think what I was, probably the one milestone I was most proud about was this New York Times article. The overarching theme of it was that I was really authentic and genuine, and that I think that really does speak volumes to me. They had done some investigation. They looked into me, who's this new candidate, and they said, we didn't find anything. And I was like, yeah, I mean, I've got a top secret security clearance. Like there's nothing on me, but I'm really doing this for the right reasons. And that is something that anyone who knows me knows is very true and real. And it was nice to get that kind of recognition. It's not been an easy path, but I'm proud of what we've built, and I'm seeing that now. And some of those naysayers have come around, and they're reaching out and saying, "Oh, you were Q4 cash on hand leader. Like you're getting all this press coverage. People are talking about you. You're being really recognized. By so many different groups, and all that's been just really rewarding.
Mhm.
And what I love, there's nothing greater than having. I was at Harris Teeter, and a woman walked up and said, I saw your ad and I looked you up, and I'm a supporter and I'm going to vote for you." And I'm just like, "Oh, that's amazing." Like I love that. Or people you're out canvassing,
Mhm.
people who are like, "Hey, I'm really excited. Thank you for doing this. Thank you for running." And I think that's what it's all about. At the end of the day, it's really about people.
Yep, absolutely. I love that. It's so amazing. It gives me a sense of belief that I can do something greater than what, potentially what I'm doing now too.
Yeah,
I think a lot of it is about reframing and being just resilient in the face of adversity, resilient in the face of naysayers. That's really easy. It's really easy to cave in and give up and say, you know what? Maybe they're right, and accept their belief of you as a reality of some kind. And it's really easy to do that. And it's really easy to stop. And it's really easy to have obstacles and say, you know what? I've been faced with everything. I just can't go on. Or we can reframe it. And instead of saying, I don't have the mental fortitude to do this, I don't have the self belief, I don't have the confidence, we say, how can I develop the mental fortitude for this? Right. Because I think it's something that, like you said earlier, it's a muscle that you train over time,
sure.
and you're relentlessly consistent. I think if you just keep showing up, and you just become so resilient. I think it was David Goggins who, I really admire him. He said, "Nothing can stand in the way of utter resilience. A huge boulder gives way to water over time, right? And splits the boulder. Nothing can stand in the way of pure resilience. Nothing." And
It's
you're like the example of that if I've never seen one. I mean,
yeah, no, I think I think I've seen that. Hillary Clinton is a great example of that. Kamala Harris is a great example. That is that is really true. I've thought about it too. How do people reach these heights? And I actually spent a lot of time in high school and college just reading bios. I'd read bios, because I was like, okay, so who are my mentors? I mean, Condoleezza Rice, Susan Rice. I would read through, and I saw this pattern, this resilience, that it wasn't an easy path for anyone. It wasn't just a straight shot, for anyone. You look at former President Barack Obama, right? And when you read some of these stories, um, it is very telling, and probably one of the most powerful ones is the story of Abraham Lincoln. The amount of setbacks and failures he went through could have crushed anyone, and probably should have. And yet there was some undying amount of resilience that pushed him forward. And I really think that that's what did it. That's what got him to become president, because there was just, from emotional to, setbacks, financial death, campaign losses, over and over again. It's really quite impressive. And that level of resilience is the fortitude you need to finally to win. And you learn from failures too. You learn from those mini setbacks, and it's what helps propel you to where you want to go. And people, I think, also alongside will be naysayers, because they also don't want you to succeed.
yeah,
They might also see something in you, and they want to just, keep you down. And I think it's really sad when people believe that, when you start to let those voices get in your head and say, oh, maybe they're right, and maybe I should stop. Or I'll find a workaround, and I'm going to do it. And if this one won't help and that one won't help, I'm just going to find someone else. And I've been really proud of the fact that I found some great champions, that have come forward and are advocating for my candidacy, that are have been helping me, either guiding or mentoring or bundling or what have you. And when I started, there were people who said, "Oh, that it won't happen," and I found a way. I found a path, and it wasn't linear always. Sometimes it was circuitous, and you start to form those connections, and you start to find those supporters, and it. I think the hard work really pays off. The authenticity pays off, and overall, I mean, the resilience for sure, because it's not easy to do this, and you're not getting paid when you run for Congress.
that part.
Yeah, it's all pro bono, right? I mean, I live off my savings, and but it's more, you're working towards an idea. It's a belief. It's a belief of change. It's a belief of a better future, and it's a belief that I've held for decades. And I think that it's very difficult to do this if you haven't had like an inner calling, had this desire for a long time. This is not some willy-nilly decision of, oh, I want to just run today, but something, like I tell people, you don't go getting 3 degrees in political science and international relations, without even thinking about running for office. That's pretty unusual. And everything I've done has been in that realm of, in the federal space, in a sense of public service.
Wow, so amazing. It's incredible, really. I mean, I'm in awe. I really admire your journey. I think it's one of, as we've talked about, resilience, fortitude, just self-belief. But
Yeah.
when I hear what you're saying, I'm a big believer in where there is desire, there is ability. I think oftentimes we have a desire to do something and we doubt our abilities, right? We kind of hold ourselves back from pursuing it due to limiting beliefs or whatever. And we sometimes don't realize that if the desire is there, the ability kind of comes to a head eventually.
Right.
It may take time to develop, it may take time to, align with all of those things, but ultimately that's part of your purpose. Do you feel like you mentioned the word calling? Do you feel this is a purpose for you, that your life's journey to this point has been leading you here?
Yeah. Again, I think it's a mix of both. It's a calling from a young age of, I mean, I left New York and I went down to DC um, to study international relations, right? To study women in politics. You learn the theory, but I also was really engaged in seminars and lectures, and that calling was there. And I left. I told my family, and I want to one day run for Congress, and that was there. And then everything after also is also part of your training. You have to learn the history. I had courses on, like, women world leaders, and understanding the struggles of what it takes and to enter the space, understanding movements, understanding all the dimensions of politics, and then working. I worked in public policy think tanks, and then I got advanced degrees, and then I went and I had a lot of experience overseas. Right, I worked for UN Women. I worked with NGOs. I worked at the grassroots level. I worked with USAID on projects internationally. I worked with DoD, and for me, safeguarding the homeland was really critical. And I think that, you know, um, national security starts with public safety, right? So all this stuff is very interlinked. I'm really big about sustaining the environment, ESG efforts, right? I mean, this is what we're going to pass down to our next generation. So I think all these things are very interlinked, and all of this training coupled with this calling is what led me to where I am today, and prepped me for what I need today, because I'm in the candidate forums and being asked questions on national security, but also on the environment, and also on business, and also on healthcare, and education, and all these different topic areas. And fortunately, I have a pretty versatile background, and I've worked on a lot of these different issue areas. My background is not just DoD, but I've been a professor. I am a teacher. I have been in the academic circles. As I said, I have worked in energy. So having all of that experience has also helped me be prepared, because you do get thrown really hard questions when you run for Congress, and people expect that about things not just locally but nationally and internationally. There's three tiers of it that you have to hit, and I think sometimes people forget that. They think, oh, okay, you come as a member of Congress and you're just looking at just local issues. But no, you join committees, right? House Homeland Security Committee, Intelligence Committee, Foreign Affairs, Science, Technology. There's a host of committees. There's caucuses you join. There's a lot of issues you look at. And you need to be pretty well versed across the board to be able to speak to all those different issue areas. And I think that having cultural context is really key. When you're able to have also, having lived in other countries, speaking those languages, I can identify with different communities. I can relate to struggles that, like my district is 12% Latino. We have a heavy Guatemalan and El Salvadorian population here. I've done development work in Guatemala, for example, right? So all those things are identifying factors with communities, and people appreciate that. People appreciate that you have spent time in these countries. I'll talk to a voter that might be Egyptian, or a voter that might be Italian, and the fact that I've lived in these places, not just read about it, not just seen a film about it, but is really touches them, and communicating in their language. So there's a lot of there's a lot of layers to it. But I think all of that has really prepped me for what what I'm embarking on right now.
That's amazing. Everybody loves being seen, heard, and understood. And if you
Sure.
can, convey messages in a way that's relevant to the people that you're serving, how can you lose, right? It's
That's
not possible. It's just not.
that's
But Krystle, that such great, such a great conversation today. It was good knowing more about you. I think my biggest takeaway from interviewing you is how authentic you are.
Thank you.
You're very approachable, and it's
Thank you.
refreshing. Like,
I
it's
appreciate it.
incredibly like, this is who you are, and I can tell. It's not something you can fake. This is not something that you can even learn. It's who you are naturally, and it comes across very well. Um,
Thank
but
you.
I think, uh, you have an amazing story, amazing background, and you're more importantly, you're doing this for the right reasons, which is so, again, refreshing to see that, somebody out there is listening to this as a calling and truly being guided by a purpose that they feel compelled to do. So, bravo.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for being you and doing what you're doing, because I really do believe you're trying to change the world, the country, all that good stuff. But I've got a QR code here on the screen. If anybody wants to learn more about Krystle, visit her website, check out her profile. She's an amazing connection. You're seeing her right now. This is how she genuinely is. None of this has been scripted at all. It's
Yeah.
been very conversational, right?
Yeah.
Um, but Krystle, any last parting words
Yeah.
for the audience?
Yeah, I just want to highlight a few things about the race. So I'm running in Virginia District 10. For those who don't know where that is, it's Northern Virginia. It includes Ashburn, Chantilly, Dulles, Sterling, Manassas, Warrenton, a sliver of Fairfax. So we're about 45 minutes ish to an hour from Washington, D.C. The airport, IAD airport is here for those, some of the folks that maybe come through there. The primary election is on June 18th. This is an open seat. So the member of Congress, Jennifer Wexton, she's a heroine of mine. She unfortunately has fallen ill and, tragically will not be able to rerun. So the seat is opened. And this is one where it's really critical because it's a House majority seat. It is one that is, we need to keep it blue. So I'm running, again, as a national security Democrat. I stand really firm on our right to choose, right for abortion, on gun safety, on fighting MAGA extremists. Those are my top three issues. I'm very big on giving more skills training to teachers, empowering our schools, protecting the environment, protecting LGBTQ rights, and protecting our senior citizens. They are one of our most vulnerable populations. So check out my website. It's Call for Congress, KAUL for Congress.com. My tagline is answering the call to service. And please, if you can make a contribution, we have a QR code here. You could do it here. You could do it on my website. But fundraising is really key because that's how you get the message out to people. And then early vote starts May 3rd. If you happen to be in district, we'd love to count on your support. And the election again is on June 18th. So let's go win this seat.
Let's go win. Why not? Right?
I appreciate it. And
I have the confidence you will win.
I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for being a valued guest on the show and podcast today, Krystle. And for everybody that tuned in, visit her website, connect with her on LinkedIn, and support her. This is what she needs in order to keep pushing the ball forward, everybody. So thank you so much for your support. We will catch you on the next episode.